Alrighty, folks, welcome back to the Buildit Podcast. Last week, I used a chat API to integrate an introduction, which worked swimmingly. So I tried to do it again this week, and here's what it came up with. The webpage you have shared is about Javi Martinez, a professional football player from Spain. It provided a brief introduction about Javi and his football career, along with some notable achievements, including some statistics, and such as the number of goals he has scored in appearances and photos and videos. Javi, as you well know, that is bullshit, because none of that is on your website, because for one, you're not a professional football player, as best I know it. So, folks, the lesson here is don't rely on Chat GPT, because it produces shit. But, hello, Javi, how are you?
Good. How are you doing, Nick?
Lovely. Our guest is Javi Bautista. Bautista. Close enough. There we go. Throw bricks at the wall, something I'll hit eventually. From Liquid Football over in Detroit, I believe. I haven't Googled you specifically, but that's near enough, right?
Yep.
Thank you for joining us this evening, wherever people listening. Of course, joining us from sunny DeKalb as ever in Club HQ is John. Hello, John.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
All good, my friend, all good. Javi, we brought you on because when you guys showed up, the brand was on point. The presentations were on point. The whole spiel was on point. And I'm super excited to see how you got to that point, why you thought it was necessary to focus on those things or the other things and whatever else. But before we get there, who the hell are you personally?
So, my name is Javi Bautista. Classic story ever since I can remember, ball at my feet. I was fortunate enough to play college soccer at Ashford University in Clinton, Iowa. And then pretty much as soon as I started playing in college, probably about my sophomore year, I started realizing that coaching was going to be what I really wanted to do. So I know I was probably just going to finish out my college career and then try and go full time into coaching. And that's basically what happened after that. I was lucky enough to play for Detroit City FC in 2015 and 2016. And it's kind of crazy because I was actually part of the very first group that was offered housing for Detroit City FC, and that was back in the NPSL days. So, I got lucky enough to play there for a couple seasons. I was pretty much already coaching at that time. Went back to finish my master's degree and coach as a graduate assistant at Gardner-Webb University in North Carolina. And then after that, the timing was right. I went back to Detroit, started the youth program for Detroit City FC. And at the same time, just started helping out with the men's team. And then when Trevor James came in 2019, he asked me to be his assistant. And I was there from 2018 up until 2022 as a full-time coach. And then just recently moved over to the Michigan Hawks, where I'm coaching full-time. And just trying to start out a new little project here with Liquid Football. So that's kind of my story. I surprisingly lived in a few different states. I grew up in Illinois, went to Iowa and lived in Iowa for 5 years, went to North Carolina, lived in North Carolina for 2 years, and then in Michigan. And believe it or not, my favorite place out of all of those, and I enjoyed every single one, but my favorite place was always Detroit. And so I'm glad that I settled here. I've been living here since 2018, and it's been good.
So
Home is where the heart is, right?
What Javi forgot to mention was he also won a Midwest Premier League Conference Championship in 2021 with Detroit City's under 23s in our first season. But he's modest, and he accidentally forgot to say that. So
that was I'm actually a little bit upset, not upset, but I'm a little disappointed that team didn't continue, because that was a very, very fun summer for us. Because I was the assistant for the first team, and then we decided to do a U23 team in the Midwest Premier League. And that was a great summer. It was really fun. We had some really good players. And like you said, we won the Midwest Conference. And then the following year, when the club had announced they were going into the USL, it just didn't work out well with the long-term plans of the club. So they ended up doing just the USL Academy. But I really wish they would have kept the team in the Midwest Premier League.
And not to belabor your 2021 accomplishments, but you also sat, I believe, on the disciplinary committee that first season. So You got a little bit of the behind the scenes of the a brand new league and dealing with rules and holding clubs accountable and that kind of stuff. So I'm sure that was quite a journey. All those probably weekly Wednesday night conference calls, I bet.
Yeah, there was a couple, but I really did like that process because I thought that process was quite fair. It was good to hear different opinions, and it was fun to do something a little bit different than just the coaching aspect, but also kind of help in how the league operates. I thought that was good too.
Sorry.
All right. So, you had experience of coaching. You've had experience of the Midwest Prem. You are now coaching full time, and you thought, do you know what? I'm not doing enough with my time. I need to get involved in an unpaid basis on doing this shit that I'm already getting paid for. They've got an infrastructure. I'm going to do it from scratch. What the merry hell were you thinking, man?
So this is kind of like a project that I've had in my mind for quite some time. And that was, the thing is when you're coaching full time, you have very little free time. And that's the reality. Unless you get to, even when you get to a certain level, you have very little free time. So I never really had the time to do it. Financially, it was just never really possible. But then the moment that I transitioned here in the last year to the Michigan Hawks, I had a little bit more free time. And I thought, you know what? I think it's time, so, I have some good friends who had similar ideas. George Chamakov, who played for DCFC for the longest time. And yeah, we've always kind of thought, let's try this out. And the fortunate thing was that by one way or another, whether it's luck or whether it's just being in the game for quite a bit of time, is we've had the opportunity to kind of experience all the different parts of running a team without actually being the ones that make the decisions. So we were kind of, we coached, we played, we were part of different organizations in Michigan. We knew the landscape. And so I think it was finally time where we sat down and we're like, is this possible? And then basically, we were just like, how hard can it be? And, I understand now it's pretty difficult, but it's not, it was never something that we felt like overwhelmed by or anything. And at the moment, maybe there's some surprises down the road, but so far, so good, I think.
How many people? I'll get back to the how many people thing. I was in my in-depth research. I was watching the video you did, the podcast you did with Michigan Soccer Central at the turn of the year.
Yep.
And the one quote that I took out from that was, "It can't be that hard, can it?" And I just wanted to see John's face when you were saying like, how hard can it be? Because it's. I guess it depends how much you want to do, right? How many people do you have with you on this journey right now? In terms of like nominally front office strokes.
Yeah, I think now we have about 10 total. So we have all different, and really it's just a bunch of people that I've known throughout my past, of whether it was at DCFC or whether it was different places. And we reached out to one of them, who I was like, we have to get this guy to start helping us. Brian Mendoza, who was our equipment manager for the DCFC U23s back in 2021. Great kid, really good work rate. And then the rest kind of just saw what we were doing and started reaching out. And, when people are willing to help and they really believe in what you're doing, I think it was easy for us to say, yes, come on board. Let's figure out what it is that you want to do and how you can help us. And yeah, now we're at about 10 people who are going to help us for the first year.
All volunteers, though, right? Obviously, no one's retiring off the back of this.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Well, filling what sort of roles? Like, well, I guess let's start at the top. What's your official title of the co-founder?
I don't know if there is an official title. I'm you can imagine as the guy who kind of sat down first in the meeting and said, this is what we want to do. I'm kind of a little bit of everything, right? I have to wear all the different types of hats. So I kind of, everything that you've seen on social media, obviously the coaching, recruiting of the players, basically I've done a lot of that. And then just had everybody else kind of help out in whichever area they felt comfortable. George Chamakov, who's the other co-founder, he does a lot of our apparel. So he's got his own clothing company, Champion Grind. So he's done a lot of the apparel that we're gonna have, the kits, the training gear, all of that stuff. And then everybody else fortunately has some sort of an experience in other areas. So we have some guys doing graphic design, some guys who are going to help with game day operations, and then obviously like our athletic trainer who's going to help during home games. And then I think we got pretty much, for the most part, we have pretty much everything covered so far. Yeah.
You've not run game day, so you don't actually. Well, I mean, you've done it at Detroit, obviously, but you've not done a liquid game day, so you're just going to be filling in around what you've got, right? That's basically what we're saying.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. All right, sweet. This will of no interest to anyone other than those that were in the room on Saturday. But who was the guy that you sent over with the man bun on Saturday to the AGM?
George Shamakov.
That was George. Okay,
yeah,
sweet.
Unfortunately, I would have liked to have gone, but unfortunately, I had it was tryout day at the Michigan Hawks. I really couldn't get out of that one. So I sent George over, and I told him to be nice and actually try and listen and learn and make some friends, which he did. So I'm glad. Georgie's not the most extroverted person, so I was a little bit worried sending him down there, but he did well, I think.
It's all good. He presented the club well. Don't worry.
Good.
John, any questions at this moment?
No, Javi and I talked about this a little bit a few months back in a private conversation, but I know you've touched on a little bit like, yeah, I want to start this club. I've had this project, but like I look from the outside in Detroit, there's just a million things going on at this level. And I think Michigan United Soccer League, Michigan Premier Soccer League, Midwest Premier League, some other 4-letter leagues probably. Like, I guess just popping into that market, which obviously you know well. Talk a little bit about how you're going to come in there and be another club, and how are you going to do it differently, not just player recruitment, but how are you going to make yourself stand out in a very dense metro soccer area?
Yeah, so the good thing about the fact that this soccer is very popular around here is that we kind of have built connections with a lot of the clubs. Like, we know the landscape pretty well. When we were talking about like the leagues, we didn't want something that was going to cost us a fortune. So unfortunately, we couldn't go with like some of the higher leagues, and especially for year one, we didn't want to have that headache. So we wanted something that was affordable, but also something that wasn't like Sunday league, for example. We didn't want some of those leagues that are just kind of like over 30s or like grown men just showing up on Sundays to play. So Midwest Premier League, obviously, with the experience we had in 2021, it just made the most sense. The question was really just whether that was going to make sense for our first year, or whether we should kind of wait a year to see what we can do. But I've always been in the mindset of like, if we're going to do something, let's do it right. Let's do it as best as we can. So the Midwest Premier League made sense. And I think recruitment wise, we have a really good connection with all the players around. So we have an idea of like what type of players we'd be able to get if we were, for example, in like UPSL, and then what type of players we'd be able to get if we were in the MWPL. So that's also been something that we already knew kind of what we were getting ourselves into. So just like building the team is not necessarily easy, but I think we knew what target type of player we wanted and what we could offer. As far as being different, I told George this at the beginning, was just like, let's just do this how we want to do it, not necessarily like the traditional ways of doing things. So if we want to, but the biggest thing for me, one of the biggest things for me was the social media, right? Like the content and I've fortunately, again, another area where somehow I stumbled into the social media and content creation. I had a YouTube channel not too long ago. I mean, I still do technically, but I don't upload as much, or I don't upload anymore really. But I had a YouTube channel where I was uploading daily, and I actually ended up getting into like a YouTube course where they like flew us out to New York. They showed us like content creation, video production, audio production, all that stuff. And yeah, I mean, that was since 2016. And since then I've been like a huge camera nerd. So like, if you see me at a camera store, I'm like at a kid in a candy store, and I'm like super excited about that stuff. So that was another thing I told George, I was like, let's do some really cool social media content. Let's do some videos. Let's try and make this look really, really appealing, because I think, again, if you think about it, like a lot of the players that's nowadays with TikTok and we just still don't have a TikTok, but like with social media and the amount of social media influence there is out there, I thought that was going to be one of our biggest pieces that kind of sets us apart from everybody else. So the things that we post, the content that we create, we just want it to be as top class as it can be. And I think that's what's going to help set us out or set us apart. And then from there, it's just building on the connections that we've had and that we've built over the years that we've been here in Michigan. And I think all of that put together is going to kind of help us really navigate year one.
Let me, as I said, like I say to all the guests we have on before we go on air, like there's not going to be any gotcha questions. We're not trying to make you cry and all that crap. But let me push back to you. We've been speaking for about 15 minutes, and it's been about building a club, and it's been about the player experience and about providing the best platform for the players and pipelines and what league, etc., etc. At what point in your expansion, your growth, do you consider the fan experience?
Well, I think, here's the thing. It's not necessarily that we're putting the fan experience aside, because I do think a lot of the decisions that we're making is how do we put something that people are going to want to come and watch and come and support. But again, the reality for us is, as people who have been on the field and been on the, at the very base level of what a club is, we always thought, if it comes down to making a decision about, do we spend money, for example, on like advertising or marketing versus do we spend money on getting the players some really cool training kits, then we're going to go with the training kits, because I think that for us is a little bit more important. So I think we've been part of clubs where the players have felt like maybe secondary to the game day experience. And I don't want any of the players to feel like that. I don't want any of the staff members to feel like that. I think I've also been part of places where the staff members are kind of just told, this is what you need to do. And the first thing we tell the staff members is, the first thing when we get on a Zoom call and just kind of explain the whole club process to them, is I just tell them, like, what do you want to do? What do you want to get out of this? Because a lot of them, obviously liquid football is not going to be their last stop. Liquid football is just something that maybe they can put on their resume and something that they want to be a part of and have a good summer. So for me, it's like, okay, looking at your resume, what makes the most sense for you to get the next job, for you to get the next, build a pathway for your professional development. So I think that's kind of, in reality, I guess that's what guides our decisions, is how do we make sure the staff is getting a good experience, the players are getting a good experience. And I think when you put those things together first, then I think we can start focusing on like, what are some of the extras for game day and the fan experience. But it's not really like we're setting them aside or anything like that. I think it's just more of prioritizing to make sure that the people on the ground, the people who are making this happen, are the ones that are happy and are getting a good experience out of it.
No, it was a poorly worded question. I apologize for like making it sound like you were working in isolation. That wasn't. No. Yeah. It's a horrible balancing act to run, right? It's like, you say, like, for argument's sake, like the players are more important than the game experience, which is great, fine, crack on. But then at some point, it's the game experience that's driving the finances. So then the game experience has to be more important. And then you risk alienating the players, and then you risk alienating the fans, and it is a never-ending cycle of whatever until the brand services itself. You don't know which paymaster to dance to, but right. Just like
yeah, of course, it's difficult, but I don't think we necessarily have to sacrifice one or the other. I think it's just about everyone who's involved, just making them feel like they're having a good time and they're enjoying what they're getting out of it.
Sure. All right. What's success look like in 2023 alone?
I think obviously financially being good for the next year. I think we're doing a good job right now. We've planned pretty well. And I think the competitiveness of it, right? I think our year one goal was to just be competitive in the league, knowing that this is our first year. We're not saying that we can't win it or anything like that, but being realistic, we just want to make sure that we give a good experience to the players in terms of the competitiveness. We're gonna mix some college guys with some older, more experienced guys. So I think it's that one's going to be a little bit difficult, because typically you find most of the teams are either like full of college guys or full of just local guys who know each other. So I think we're going to try and mix. But I think that's a good way to be really competitive. And I think if all of our games are pretty close and the players feel like they're getting ready for either college or some of the older guys are just getting a really good workout out of it, then I think we'll be okay. I think financially, trying to get us a little bit ahead for next year so that we have a base financially to start building on next year. But I know the reality is we're not going to make, crap ton of money or anything like that. We just want to make sure we cover our costs and that we're ready for next year.
Sure. Do you have anyone balancing the books for you, or are you all flying by the seat of your pants? Have you got anyone with business acumen?
Nope. I have an Excel document that has everything that we've spent money on, and all 10 staff members have access to it, so they can see where we're spending our money. And when we have our Zoom meetings, we talk about, does it make sense for us to buy this? Does it make sense for us to pay for this? And then just looking ahead at the costs that are going to happen in terms of, referees and game day costs and all that stuff. And we make all those decisions together. It's right now, it's just an Excel document with everything on there so that we're ready for next year and we understand what we spent money on and where we need to cut some costs and where we maybe need to spend a little bit more.
How involved have individuals at the league been in your development? Have they been involved? Like, have you been able to reach out and say, give me assistance here, there, or wherever?
So obviously the first conversation that I had was actually with John. And this was, he was gracious enough to get on a phone call with me at the beginning and just to see if this was even possible for us. Gave me some really good information about DKCU and how they started everything and what the league looks like from a business standpoint, from financial, viability. And then that I guess that's the one of the main reasons is that the communication with the league and the people at the top there and the people on the board is really easy. I mean, it's literally I get on my application, I send one of these guys a message, and they're always pretty available to reply and give me a good answer. So it's been pretty easy. Fortunately, we haven't, I think, with the experience that we had in 2021, kind of already know how the league works. So we haven't been reaching out every 5 minutes asking for help or anything like that, but we know that the guys are there if we need them.
No, that's not what they said on Saturday. They said you were on your own. You can't be bothered showing up. And then just to circle back to the success thing, what's long-term success mean?
I don't know. See, we're not really we haven't thought that far ahead. I think 5 years from now, if we're financially healthy and we can continue to do this and offer this as a a really good opportunity for the summer. I think the biggest thing that we said at the beginning was like, let's not just get too far ahead of ourselves and let's not start thinking about, starting a women's team or starting a youth program or anything like that right now. They just focus on this one team that's helping build this club. And then in the future, if it makes sense, there's no reason why we wouldn't chase those opportunities. But I think just looking at even like 5 years from now, if we can have maybe a couple of championships under our name and help build, give another opportunity to the players in this area, then I think we're doing pretty well.
John, the floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah, so it's funny when Javi and I talked, whenever it was, December, November, when he was like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this thing and joining the Midwest Premier League again. And there's always like that concern with anybody that reaches out that like, hey, I'm starting a brand new thing. And, we're always cognizant of we want to make sure clubs are ready. And it's very nice. Javi obviously brought some experience from 21, and then you guys have hit the ground running with the video content and some of the stuff you're doing. It's a little bit of a like take a deep breath because, man, they actually like all the stuff you said. You guys were going to come through. You had a plan. You had a strategy, and it was rewarding that you guys have come through so far and kind of taking care of business. And you're not just rolling the ball out. You're trying to build something bigger than that, and that's cool. I nerd out on money because money creates sustainability, I think, as much as anything. So as you guys are, without like divulging too much info, but like, what's your strategy like for generating revenue? Or is it individuals throwing a few bucks in? Is it sponsorships? How much is it? Is it 50% sponsorships, 50% memberships, merchandise sales through Georgie's company? Like, how are you guys going to raise the dough?
So, and I don't mind sharing any of this information out of public. I think this is important because, like I said, if more teams did this and showed exactly where they spend their money and how they're spending their money and what's taking the biggest hit on the budget and all that, I think it makes it a little bit easier for the next person to start a club, start something. So, as I said, I'm not afraid to like send all this information to our staff members or anybody else. Because it's nice to share that information with other people who are trying to do the same thing. So we started in April when we had our first meeting, and we were like, let's do a year of planning, like a year of getting this properly ready, before we actually start playing. Just because that helps us get a little bit more time to also raise funds, make sure we're ready to go. So I put in So in total for the first year, I'm going to put in about $8,000. I put in a little bit already, probably about half of that, and then I'll continue to put more as the year continues. So I'll probably put in about $8,000. I'm the only one that's put in any money in terms of like owner investment or anything like that. But that was what I told George, and I told the other people, like, don't worry, I'm never going to ask you to put in your own money to fund this. So about $8,000 for me. We've raised, so as far as our sponsors, we got all our sponsors covered in terms of like jerseys and the big sponsors. We've raised about $5,000 from the sponsors. And then like tryouts, for example, we're 2 spots away from being full on tryouts. It's in March 9th, so that's really exciting because tryouts are under $1,000. And then like apparel, I think we set a target of trying to sell like 20 jerseys for year 1. So I don't know, that was just like a number we threw out there. I don't know if we'll sell more. I'm hoping we'll sell more. Yeah, so in total, you can add that up. I have it on my Excel sheet again, but somewhere around like probably total by the end of the year, what we've spent and funded the liquid football will be somewhere close to, I would assume like $15,000. But all of that stuff is already accounted for. So we never did we say this is only going to work if we sell this many tickets or if we sell this many jerseys. Like that's all that stuff is extra. I said I'm gonna fund it. We're gonna get our sponsors, and once we have that should cover most of it, and then the rest would just be having a little bit of extra money to be able to spend on some training jerseys or a third kit or whatever. But yeah, somewhere $15,000 what we'll bring in.
Do you have a good home venue and training location and facility, and you must have a good relationship with somebody? We spend a pretty good amount of money for field rentals for trainings and games for just for the summer season. So that's why I'm always curious. That's one of our biggest line items.
Yeah. So the home field was a big one because we had like a couple of options. One of them was going to be super cheap, super inexpensive. Problem was, location, the field surface, all that stuff just didn't make sense. Like thinking about like what we want game day to look like, it just didn't make sense. And I knew the players would show up and be like, "Are we really playing on this for home matches?" So we were fortunate enough to get University Liggett, which is a really, really nice high school. It's like they have a turf field for like every sport. So it's really nice. The area is really nice as well. And the cool thing is that it's got just enough stands for the amount of people that I think we'll get in like the first couple of years. So we didn't want like a huge stadium and then we get like an eighth of the stands to look full. So that doesn't make the game day look good either. I think in total we'll probably spend about, I have to adjust the prices because we're going to add a little bit more time just to be safe, make sure that we don't overuse the time that we have allotted. But in total it's probably about like $3,500 for I think 6 home games is what we'll have there for the home field. Again, the areas that we're like, we have to spend a little bit more money, we have to, in order to enhance the experience for the players and for the fans and the staff. And then training, we have a facility as well that one of my friends is like the high school coach there. Not like the greatest for like game day experience, but good enough for like training, and I think we'll use that, and that would be like super low cost, almost free. Just trying to use it on times where nobody's using it. He'll let us use it for free. So that's obviously a huge one, because training, if we didn't have that facility, I'll be looking at spending a lot of money on a training facility. But fortunately, we already got that one locked in, so we're okay there, and that allows us to spend a little bit more money on the home field.
Yeah, it makes sense. That's always like I said, that's always a big line item for us, is just finding the right quality fields and the insurance and all that stuff, just to make sure everybody's happy and content with that, and you're not bootlegging around at dark when, like, right before they shut the lights off, we're going to pop in and train for an hour. And just, I don't think you're going to go this route, but you want it to be that as professional of an experience for the players and coaches as it can be, so you could recruit the best coaches and the best players, and make it an elite experience where people are choosing you over Livonia, or you over Lansing, or you over whoever. There's, like I said, with the density there, you have to continue to set yourself apart and be the place that you want to be the big club in town, and then everybody else is a second and third fiddle to you, and I think it sounds like you got a good plan to do that. What's your I know you haven't been through the first season yet. What's your anticipated biggest challenge heading into year one? What do you think what hurdles are in front of you?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I think we've done a pretty good job of planning everything. I think it's just trying to find. I'm gonna be a little bit worried if I'm like on game day running around trying to do everything, because there's a lot of different things that you have to do on game day to make sure everything's going well. So I think we got enough people. I'm one of those people that like I trust the people who we have. I do believe that I'm not up on those when we're doing their job. I think there's really the only area right now that we haven't fully finalized and we haven't like said, okay, this is what's going to happen. This is the live streaming. And again, I understand a little bit about the live streaming. One of the guys that's going to help us, he knows the live streaming really, really, really well. It's just about getting some people to like man the camera and do the commentary and stuff like that. But that's really the only area that we haven't accounted for, that's kind of in the back of my head of like, we got to make sure we get sorted soon. Besides that, I think we'll be okay. And so our first home game isn't until like the second week of June, or like late first week, second week, somewhere around there. So we'll have played like 2 or 3 games already in the league before we play our first home game. So I think I'm excited to go to those games and see kind of how everybody else is doing their home games, so that we have some more ideas going into our first home match. I think we're just trying to be as careful. Obviously, the biggest thing is the thing that we have the least experience with is the running of the financials, is the budget and all that stuff. So we're trying to be really careful in terms of making sure we don't overspend right now, and then later on we're trying to find ways to fund everything. So I think just continuing to make right decisions there will make it easier for us. But I don't really have anything I'm like, it's in the back of my head of like, I'm not sure how we're going to figure this out.
So when you're building your income streams, and obviously you want memberships, you've got individual and family membership season tickets on your website. This sounds like, as Nick would say, a gotcha question. It's not. It's just kind of just challenging you a little bit. How do you get people to care enough to buy a season ticket?
Well, season tickets are cheap. We're charging like $25 for, I think it's $25 for like a 6-game package for an individual one. I think the way we're trying to push it on social media is that they're, buying a season ticket, on top of it, getting you access to the games is just helping support. You're helping support, something local and something that's run by people who have been around and are trying to do something a little different. So that's kind of how we're going to market it a little bit. $25 is cheaper than, now this is cheaper than going out and getting like a meal at a meal for 2 at a fast food place. So it's, I think hopefully we'll get a little bit of support from people that we know, in the area that have following me and George in our kind of our careers and stuff, and kind of looking at liquid football and saying, this is kind of cool. This project is kind of cool. So I'll support. We're also just trying to be creative. Like the season tickets that we got are like custom designed with, looks like a little credit card, and it looks really, really cool. Going through like different samples of those and the branding, I think. And there's lots of different ways, but again, as I said, I hope people support, and I hope people can see what we're trying to do. But at the end of the day, we're not like super, we hope we need them to buy our season tickets, or else we're going to be we're not going to be able to play. But I think it just, hopefully people see what we're trying to do, and it's cheap enough. $25 is not really that expensive.
Yeah, but no, I get it. I just, I remember I'm going back to when we started, and it was like, I remember thinking a lot of the same things of what you just said, of like, hey, it's really cool, and you should care as much as I do, because it's cool and it's not that expensive. And I think one of the things that we actually had very good success with season tickets based on that exact premise. So it didn't turn out to be a sustainable. Well, we had X number of tickets year one, and we didn't have that level the next year. So you get all excited thinking, well, that's a slam dunk, and we're going to grow 30%. Well, turns out we were like 30% in total of that first number, which was a big line item that we had, we kind of budgeted for this, and then we didn't get it, and it was new and that worked out, but then it didn't create that sustainable income stream. And I think one of the things I would do differently if I was doing it again is try to find ways to be active in the community. And Nik and I obviously we're very aligned in this, like, we have to care about the people if we want them to care about us, kind of. So, just finding ways to get out and explain, whether it's getting into the school somehow and doing little things during gym class and or a reading night or a whatever. I think those are all good ways to support. And it all takes time and money. That's the hard part, right? We're all volunteers, or it all takes time and money, but showing the people in the community that, hey, we're not expecting you to support us. We're here to support you. And, then hopefully you'll support us, but we're here to serve first. I think that actually in the long run, and Nik, tell me if I'm wrong, I think in the long run, that's been a more beneficial approach to our community, is to go in sort of with service, and then it all just works out from there. But
yeah, I would agree. I wasn't part of it the first year, so I don't know what your season ticket numbers were, but I would say that I think ourselves and Javi are coming from it and aiming for the same goal from the completely different side of things, right? If you're going to put us on either side, we are fans first, and Javi's operation is players first, and neither is right and neither is wrong. It's just you stick with what you know. The people that are involved in running DeKalb aren't players, so by definition, they're probably going to be focused more on fans in the long term than Javi's operation. But yeah, I think the pitfalls of our way of looking at it are that can you attract the best talent if you're not putting the player experience top, right? If you're talking about the fans, then like as Javi's experience, like, well, they're not giving me the best kit, or they're not giving me the best game day operations, or whatever it is. So and the pitfalls of Javi's approach, I think, would be that there's a natural life cycle of player X, whether it's 1 season, 2 seasons, 5 seasons, and then you've got to replace him and the people that came with him on game days. And there isn't a perfect solution. There really isn't. I'm interested to see how you do it, though, because I do know that the fan-focused operation is in the minority within our league, and the player-focused operation is definitely the preferred methodology. And to bring it back where I wanted to talk to you, Javi, the branding of liquid football is so out of the park. Like, I don't know whether it's you, whether you've got gifted friends, or whether you just looked on it or whatever, but like, from taking aside the fact that liquid football doesn't tell me anything about where you are, who you play, where you play, etc., but the branding, the badge, everything, I absolutely freaking love. How did it come about?
So as I said, I had a YouTube channel back in the day, and I really got into cameras. I got into photography, videography, all the whole production part of it. So when I first moved into my house, I have a little like upstairs, which I'm at right now, and I'm going to convert this into a studio, like a little tiny studio where I can do like YouTube videos and all this stuff. So little by little, I started buying a camera here, a lens here, and a backdrop here. And then I think I'm one of those guys that's like always on YouTube looking at tutorials for stuff. Like, if I can't figure something out, YouTube is like the greatest place. And this doesn't even have to do with just like production. It has to do with like when I need to change the taillights of my car, I need to get something fixed. Like, you can go on YouTube and you can figure anything out. And so, yeah, like now, really, like if I just put YouTube on my television or whatever, I have like recommendations for tutorials on cameras and photography and all this sorts of stuff. So I think I started to get an idea of, okay, how does lighting work to make something look really good? What camera settings are we using? What colors are we using? How do we put something out that looks really good? And not to knock on anybody else, because that's not what like we are and what we're trying to do. But like I see some like posts on social media or like content creation by like professional clubs, and in my head I'm like, they have like a full-on production team, and like this still looks kind of like somebody just made it on like an old school version of like Photoshop. So, and again, not to knock on anybody like that, but I was just thinking like we can do something that looks really, really nice. So yes, it takes a little bit of work. It takes a lot of work because, not the filming part of it or the thought process behind it, but then I have to get on the computer for 4 or 5 hours to try to edit it and try to make it look all pretty. But I mean, yeah, it's kind of funny because like on the social media, I think it looks pretty good. Like I look at it, I'm like, okay, I'm pretty happy with what our branding looks like and everything. And then you like when I bring staff members, when I first put the staff members to my house, I'm like, hey, we're doing the staff stuff for you, like the announcement and everything. They come up and it's just a regular house in Detroit, and upstairs I just have this like, tiny little studio, and it's hard to picture it when you're actually in here, but then when it's on camera, it looks pretty good. So I think the focus for us was always like, let's build something that looks really, really cool on social media that has a certain type of identity. And I'll be honest, like the logo we got made on Fiverr. I don't know if you guys have the Fiverr, but I mean, it's just like we just found a couple of guys who were like make logos, and we made the logo. It took us probably 3 to 4 months before we were finally like, okay, that's what we really like to do, or that's what we really like. And then we don't, if it comes to putting something out just to put something out versus putting something, or versus like not putting anything out at all, I think we'd rather just wait, do it right, or do it the way we like it, versus just trying to consistently post. And fortunately, we had the time and the people to help us to be able to do it consistently, but also post really good content. Like I said, I'm a huge camera nerd. Like you guys, my wife, when she first saw me at a camera store and she saw me talking numbers to the guy, she was like, "Who are you? Like this is not. You're supposed to be the soccer guy and the soccer coach." I've always had a passion for like content creation. Yeah, so it's cool. It's fun. It's a passion of mine, and yeah, like I said, it's been a few years in the making because when I really started taking the YouTube thing seriously, that was 2017. So now 6 years later, I'm still doing some sort of content. And now it's not necessarily for my YouTube channel, but it's for Liquid Football, and I think it's helped us out. And I think beyond just looking good on social media and all that stuff, it's also attracted players, people who want to be involved in the project because they're like, hey, it looks really cool. I want to be a part of that. So that's one of the avenues that we've taken.
There's a level of professionalism that comes with what you're putting out that, aside from the players and aside from the fans, is attractive to sponsors, right? Which realistically, they bring in 10x what the players and the fans bring in. So let's talk to them. Yeah, it's a huge thing. My dog has just decided to drink some water now, so I apologize if people can hear lapping in the background. How do you foresee integrating that sort of professionalism, the content professionalism, with season operations, like in growing the inverted commas brand?
Yeah, so right now the hard part is we don't have any real content of like training or games or anything on the field, which has been quite difficult because when you're trying to run a club, you're trying to promote it, like you need pictures of the players playing and celebrating and things at training and really cool pictures. And we don't have any of that because we haven't started yet. So it's been quite difficult right now. All of it has just been behind the scenes, like in a studio, like interviews, just to try and build up a little bit of hype. But I mean, the cool thing is that like I'm going to be the coach, right? So I'll coach because it doesn't make sense for me to pay someone else to come in and coach when I have the experience of already been doing this as a primary job. So I'll probably coach, but at the same time, you might see me on, during training when the guys are playing, I might bust out a camera and start recording some cool stuff. Put some GoPros in the goals. We've bought like audio equipment so we can do some cool interviews. And just bunch of different ideas that we can, where at other places I couldn't have just said like, hey, I'm going to put a camera here and I'm going to interview players. I couldn't do that because that wasn't part of my job. And, we had a professional team to run. Here, it's like, it's a free for all, right? We can do whatever we want. We can put cameras everywhere. We can mic up the players. We can put GoPros on some of the players. We can do whatever we want. And hopefully the easier part of putting out content actually happens when the season starts or when training starts, because then we'll have a bunch of content that we can upload daily for the social media. Right now, it's just kind of like stuff in my studio, and it'll get a little bit better once we start doing the player announcements. But I think it'll be a little bit easier. And same thing on game day. We'll try and do some interviews, press conferences, all sorts of stuff, all sorts of creative stuff.
I think it's going to be exciting to watch your your creative passion and your soccer passion come together. Because I think you could tell just in your voice, like you're equally excited to get your camera out at training as you are to run a session, a tactical session or whatever, like, so I think it's cool.
Yeah. I think I've never really had the opportunity to do that. So that's what I'm really excited about. It's like before I was always like, I have to ask the right people if I can, record for my YouTube channel or whatever. Or, I can't do both because, I'm either coaching or doing this. I mean, if there's nobody necessarily above me that I have to ask for permission, then we can kind of do whatever we want. So, I'm excited for that for sure.
It's going to be something else. It's definitely a passion. It's definitely exciting. I would urge you on the side of caution that you know how this league operates. If they get an inkling of an ability or a passion, that you'll be on some sort of marketing committee as fast as you know it. So, lock your doors, shut your windows.
Of course, yeah.
Tryouts were earlier this month, right?
No, tryouts are coming up on the 19th.
Oh, 19th
of this month.
Sweet. Are you expecting, obviously you're expecting a good turnout, but like, do you have a call of players from your file of facts that are coming to your squad already and you're looking to fill like 8 or 10 places, or are you just going from scratch and whatever will be?
Yeah, no, we have I think 8 players and like to play for us already. Tryouts are wide open. We'll see what we get. Obviously being realistic and being year one, not like we're only looking for like one player, one position. I think we'll leave it pretty open. If there's any good players out there, we'll ask them to join. And I think there's also some players who have already reached out, who have signed up for tryouts, who have reached out and said, hey, I want a training opportunity this summer. And we'll have our doors open to that as well. But yeah, I think we still have a little bit of time, but I think if we can get a roster somewhere around like 22 to 24 for the summer, I think we'll be okay. So we still have quite a few spots to fill, but I'm still waiting to hear back from some college players about where they're going to be over the summer in terms of like their internships and jobs and things like that. But we're okay right now. We got about 8 players fully committed. Probably get a couple more this week, and then kind of see where tryouts takes us.
You have plans to run? I know you said down the line there may be talk of a ladies team and there may be talk of U23s, etc., etc. What about reserves and sort of a back catalogue for your first team should injuries or summer vacations take hold? What's the story? How big's the squad? There you go.
Yeah, so the squad will probably be about 20 to 25. But the reality is like some of the guys that we're asking are guys who played at a really high level and have like recently within the last few years like retired. So it's like guys who are still wanting to play at a pretty high level, but can't make the commitment because, a lot of us have kids, they have jobs, full-time, that whole thing. So we understand like some of these guys are going to be able to make every single game. So I think having a roster around there, 22 to 25, allows us to make sure that we're covered when we go, especially to some of the like further games that some of those guys might not be able to make. So I think as long as we can bring a good competitive roster of 18 players to each game, I think we'll be okay. I think looking at like reserve, it's just, the problem with that is that it's, we're essentially adding an entire other schedule to our already cramped schedule, So I think down the line, that could be a possibility if we have the right people in place who are willing to, volunteer their time. I have a full-time job. Most of the people that are helping us have a full-time job. So it's kind of hard to say like, yeah, we're going to just tackle on another team. But again, those conversations in a couple of years when we see where we are and how we've been operating for the last few years, I think those are conversations that are worth having. But yeah, the biggest thing for us was like, don't try and overdo everything. Let's just do one team to begin with, and let's see how year one goes.
Yeah, for sure. Stay in your lane, right? Just nail what you know. That's sweet. All right, Johnny boy, any wrap up questions?
No, I don't really have any more questions, Javi. I'm encouraged by your enthusiasm. Bringing something unique, I think, even to the league. I think you're doing things differently, really, than any of the other clubs are. I think it's going to be fun to watch. It's going to be fun for Nik to steal things from you when you come up with good ideas. He probably already has.
John, how dare you? I would reappropriate. I would not steal. Just ask appellation. But anyway.
Yeah, Nik, ideas belong to everyone. I think you can steal as many as
if you don't want to share. And put it on social media, right? Yeah.
So, no, I think it's great, Javi. I'm excited for you guys, and I wish you guys all the best in the first season. And most importantly to me is, regardless of where you end in the table, I hope you're back in year 2, because that's the hardest part, is just being here. How the results are results, but it takes a lot of work off the field, as you know, to get people in place and get your group of 10 and hopefully have 9 of them back for year 2, so you're not starting over. And I hope, wish you guys a lot of success on and off the field this year.
Yeah, I appreciate that, John. I think, as we said, we started in April, and we said, let's take an entire year to plan this out. So with the time that's passed, it's been almost a year now that we've been doing this. I think we're going to do the same thing as soon as the season's over. Just kind of just restart the planning process. But yeah, that is the goal. We don't want to just make this a 1-year thing and just say, let's have one good season, and then all of a sudden, social media again, the club kind of just folds or whatever. No, we want this to be something. I can't say this is going to be around for 30 or 40 years, because I don't know where we're going to be and what I'm going to be doing and stuff. But I do think that we want to build something that's going to be, again, not trying to take over. We're not trying to take over Detroit. We're not going to tell anyone to just come to our games and not support other teams. We just want to give another opportunity to some players to have one more opportunity to call something home, and for us to build something that we're really passionate about, we enjoy, and have our own kind of unique take on it.
No, it sounds great.
Yeah, it's going to be super exciting to see how this approach flourishes or doesn't. I hope it does flourish. And yeah, best of luck for everything, Javi. Don't be a stranger. Stay in touch. We're going to be keeping. It's one more reason to keep an eye on things happening over in Detroit, Michigan, because Lord knows the entire division our league is pretty much based over there. I don't even know why they bother having an AGM in Chicago anymore. We might as well just all do.
Of course.
But anyway,
of course.
Says Nick, who lives 3 minutes from where the AGM was. He wants it in Detroit.
To be fair, come on, I don't mind it being in Chicago. My family lives in I forget, Schaumburg. My parents live in Schaumburg, so we're not. I mean, next year if I can make it, it's an easy. I couldn't this year, but I think next year. I mean, it's an easy just to also get my parents to babysit my kids for a little bit, and for me and the wife to also spend some time.
What have you got? How many kids?
I got 2 toddlers. I got a 2-year-old and a 9-month-old. So,
what flavor?
Both are boys.
Who says what flavor?
And I'll tell you what, that is also one of the hard parts of doing the content creation, because I'm up here trying to do interviews with like the staff members, and then my 2-year-old is just running around like ripping up the backdrop and like touching the microphone and stuff like that. So that's I guess one of the bigger challenges that we've had so far.
There you go. That's what it's all about, though.
All right, man. Best luck with everything. Don't be a stranger. Stay in touch, and we will see you hopefully at whatever the league decides is the league championship decider thing. All right, my friend.
Fantastic. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, I appreciate it.
Boys, take care.
Now the time has come for leaving. Fear now we shall return. We were so glad we could make it, but so sad we gotta run. Well, it might be a long time till we raise another glass. You can rest assured that next time we'll have ourselves a laugh.